A silver fog, the lunar dusts of memory surrounding us, dream dunes, the craters left by hope, by fantasy. Where do you get your ideas, Mr. Macon? Sat by the bed, the ticking clock and Amy's pulse, then just the clock. This is our human contract then. Attraction and bereavement, love and loss. This is the hurtful chasm between fact and fiction, between what we want and what we get. Those limbs and their familiar movements made ungainly, stilled by death. The waxen pallor blossoming with the receded heat. Her body smaller somehow, something gone, her gone. Oh, Amy, this is not a story. This is fact, and all the future that they might have had, her voice that speaks his name and wakes him red-eyed in the empty bedroom, her perfume, her touch, her smile, that's fiction. That's all dreams now. That's all gone. With his wife's death, Macon surrenders to despair, black, crashing waves of it. The floodgates of the heart collapse and buckle overwhelmed. Life's floorboards crumble and the plunge seems bottomless. Our glands scream enzymes as the elevator drops. The chemic balances inside us lurch and reason staggers. Something gives in Macon. From the depths he's flung into the golden and exalted state he names in his autobiography as Sion, then sinks gradually into a twilight ambience he calls Baghdad, where fables walk the London streets and dreams loom forward suddenly, out from the violet shadows. Baghdad. Arabian nightmares smoulder at the corners of Red Lion Square. Exotic tableaus, fabulous grotesques in every court or close along the Gray's Inn Road. Men who seem knitted from the dusk at large in this queer lunar shift. The lanes and alleys are become another place, transmuted by the lodestone silver of imagination. Shabby promenades made new, made souks and minarets in the mind's moonlight. This is Yesod, purpling Sephiroth of dreams that hangs like marvellous weather just above the plains of body, world and waking mind. The gated yards of Holborn shiver with phantasmagoria, and every gas lamp has its blue and hissing genie. That which is grows indistinct and wavers in a gel of that which might be. Oil-skinned puddles formed between the cobbles, tremulous end-paper marblings of colour to enhance the lurid tales and melodramas writ in rust on every guttering, in cracks and snail script on each paving slab. Meaning billows as a damp fluorescence in the cul-de-sacs that beads the top coat with dwarf opals. People who were never born but only written beckon from the drives and doorways. There are roc's eggs hatching in the rain spouts. Macon wanders spellstruck in Baghdad, is jostled in its ghost bazaars and swelters in its amethyst humidity. Peculiar dumb shows glimpsed in spills of lamplight. Macon is accosted by impossibilities. Characters from the three imposters step out through its shifting layers to tug his coat sleeve in the park. Odd notions surface in a rolling sheen of trout skin from the smoking fog. Everyone knows this moon town that has ever dreamed or wondered. In our reveries we window shop at its emporiums, and in our fevers ride wild steaming horses down its avenues. Some people pass their lives amongst its phosphorescent street fairs, wide-eyed in the lurid sideshows of imagination. Fantasies of sex and money, lottery pornographies. Some lose their reason, lose their A to Z, circle forever on obsessive ring roads looking for an exit ramp to get them off this astral flyover, to get them down. Still others thrive, Swaggering expats of reality who work the export angle, crafting dreamland bric-a-brac for sale at a considerable markup. The oniric carpetbaggers, artists, writers, sculptors, sorcerers, tycoons of fancy, speculating, long on made-up futures, sauntering the silvery parades, a tall-tale aristocracy. Moon dandies with their pockets full of brushes, pens, and fireflies. Plumes of imagery are kicked up from their spats at every step. Machen and Morris, Burne-Jones and Rossetti, J.D. Watson, co-discoverer with Francis Crick of the dual helix, dreams of interwoven stairwells, and the structure of the DNA is suddenly made clear. These are not tourists in the moon-soaked muse of the unconscious, but explorers. In their oils and their vignettes they'll chart these crescents, catalogue their flora and their fauna, sound the well at the world's end and time its echo. They list its pleasures and deliriums. They track the spoor and footprints of its horrors. In Baghdad, Machen meets the three imposters, is engaged in conversation with his own creations, gets his ear bent by young men with spectacles. An eerie process is implicit here. First, born from primal nothing, there is radiation. This will cool and crystallize to matter, which will, in time, somehow organize part of itself into organic life. This life becomes aware, begins to think, begins to dream. Then, in Baghdad, the dreams start answering back. The written page becomes too frail a barrier. Things start to tear their way through from the other side, almost as if the realms of waking substance and of fantasy were not two separate worlds at all, but were instead gradations on a smooth continuum, a single stream that trickles in the crystal-littered gutters of Baghdad. The dreams start answering back. Miss Lally waves to Machen from a tea shop window. Elsewhere, in Connecticut, a ghostly form is seen in cloak and hat in the abandoned house once owned by stage magician Walter Gibson, who, as Maxwell Grant, spent several million words there writing the adventures of pulp mystery man The Shadow, with his cloak, with his slouch hat. Sat at a sandwich bar in Westminster, I meet the sharp South London wide boy occultist that I'd created some years previously for a US comic book. He looks at me, he nods and smiles and walks away. Years later, in another place, he steps out from the dark and speaks to me. He whispers, "I'll tell you the ultimate secret of magic. Any cunt could do it." In top hat and tails, the lunar dandies pick their way between the argent drifts. The consciousness of hours birthed in the factual muds of earth is blossomed here, is opened like a lily in this sensuous, fictive moonlight. From this plateau of awareness we may tilt our heads back and behold the cosmos, scintillant above us. Not until we can inhabit our imaginations are we able to imagine the great hierarchy of planets, the tiered further layers of intelligence ranged overhead, superior lights of which this silvery radiance is only a reflection. In Baghdad, all things are possible. Here we can glimpse the high rungs of our twisted stair, can climb on a rope ladder.